Hey there, everybody. Thanks for joining me for another one-man review. Finally, it's here. This is a book that I've been longing and desiring for I don't know how long, 2016, 17 maybe, that I read this as a scanlation online, and it became one of my favorite comics of all time. I think when Living the Line started, I don't think, I know for a fact that one of my dreams when we did Strange Death and Sean decided to keep Living the Line going as a publishing company and not just do that as a one-off Kickstarter, I was hoping that Sean could get the rights to The Climber, because I just wanted to see this artwork present. Well, A, I just wanted to own the book, and it didn't seem like it was ever going to get made. And B, with the production job that Sean does and how intense the art in this gets as it goes on, I just really wanted to see that, and I wanted to see it in an oversized hardcover. Right now, we've got it coming out from Viz in their like omnibus collection size, so 450-ish page books. If they ever re-release this in hardcover, they do the big oversized thing one day, 10 years from now, I'll totally swap out, because like I said, this is one of my favorite comics of all time. So I'll be talking about each volume as it comes out. Y'all just expect that now, especially since this first volume, I think if people picked it up and looked at the art and read the story, they wouldn't understand why I'm putting this in my like top 3 comics of all time. It starts out as a pretty standard sports manga. I think when I read it, I hadn't read a lot of work like that, so it was very like exotic in its structure. Now that I've read more manga, I understand that the structure's a little more standard, and starting with a kid in high school and he's getting introduced to a sports club and that kind of stuff. But so I was a little worried that on a reread, having more manga under my belt, I wasn't going to like it as much, but I'm still really, really connecting with it. And knowing where the story goes and where the art goes from here, I know that I'm going to be excited about it. So I'll talk more about that as we go. What excites me so much about this and what separates it out to me. But anyways, this is right here. This is Buntaro Mori. He's the main character. He's the new kid at school, kind of a typical setup there. He's like the dark, quiet outsider kid. And this character is very much the loner. And I think that's one of as a fairly hermity kind of introvert myself, one of the things I really related to in this book. Immediately, of course, he's got to meet like an inspiration kind of bully character. This is the Miyamoto character. And you'll see here there's some more standard like manga exaggerated faces and stuff like that. I think Schinichi Sakamoto starts off as a really good but standard manga artist, someone who's willing to put in a lot of work but hasn't quite separated himself from the crowd yet. But this Buntaro character, Mori, is meeting Miyamoto. Miyamoto is a really, really good climber already. You can see that he's climbed the side of the school building here, and basically challenges Buntaro Mori to climb up the side of the building, and that is this big sequence here where he climbs up the side of the school building and almost dies, and finds his love for climbing. And I really love this shot here, taking that manga extreme foreshortening and the focus on the hands, like for the climber. I think there's beautiful drawings of hands all throughout, because that's such a big part of the sport. But this is the moment that Buntaro Mori really finds that excitement of like, look, yes, I want to be a climber. I think one of the things that sets this out from a lot of other sports manga that I've read, or a lot of manga in general, is a lot of those, they set out to become the best. Like here you could see, I'm gonna climb this route that no one's ever climbed before. I'm gonna be the best ninja. I'm gonna be the strongest fighter, any of that kind of stuff. And there is a component of that in here, but ultimately Buntaro's driven more by his desire to be alone, and the kind of introvert's mental challenge of climbing something like this is appealing to him. And that's what really struck me. And then within that, like that desire to be alone, he does want to become the best. He does want to become a master of his craft. And that's one of the things that's so special to me about this book, is you go from pretty quickly, some fairly standard looking manga like this to some pretty exceptional imagery like this. And that only continues over the course of the series, where Shinichi Sakamoto goes from being a really good manga artist to one of the best ever. And you don't necessarily get that full growth by the end of this volume. When I was thinking about, like, oh my god, if we could get the license for this, that would be so cool. I was wondering though, how would you promote this? You couldn't do it one small tankobon at a time, because by the end of volume 1, even though it's a good compelling story, and when I read it online, I blew through it all in like one night, even from the starting point, I feel like people wouldn't get a full look at how good the art gets. And even by the end of this volume, where the art really is starting to get like really, really impressive, there's still a lot of room to go for Shinichi Sakamoto in terms of his skill set. So in the same way that the character is constantly leveling up his abilities as a mountain climber and becoming a true master, like Shinichi Sakamoto uses this book as his own ascent up the mountain to masterhood, and that's built into the story as well. And I'll point out some quotes and things that suggest. I mean, that was always just my assumption of what the story was about, but there's some quotes in here that back that up. But yeah, beautiful imagery like this. At this point, this is all hand done as well. This is all analog. I know, starting with Innocent, Shinichi Sakamoto moved over to digital art, but this is all hand-drawn, hand-toned stuff. So fascinating, gorgeous imagery. There's not even that much that looks like adjusted photos in here. There's a little bit of it, but not a lot. So, of course, there's a young teacher who finds out that Buntaro is doing this stuff and kind of doing it dangerously, trying to basically solo climb mountains without a rope or anything. Here's another really good example of hand drawing and how beat up the hands get, how important the hands are in the story. But yeah, you can see him here solo climbing. So this teacher's like, no way, you don't have the right tools. We gotta do this. I'll buy you some shoes if you take part in a competition. So using that to get the character engaged with the climbing club that they're trying to put together. So Buntaro does join the competition and is doing very well, but he's kind of a rule breaker, so he unclasps himself from the rope. He finds the rope is inhibiting him from climbing and gets disqualified from the competition, but shows that he's like this kind of prodigy level talent that gets everyone paying attention to him. And in this sequence here, there's some really beautiful imagery. One of the things I like quite a bit about Shinichi Sakamoto is he's willing to go into the character's mind with his drawings. Like here, he's not actually climbing this wall, he's climbing this wall, but in his mind he's imagining this other wall that he's climbing. And that gets more extreme as the series goes on as well, this interior kind of psychedelic imagery. A third character comes in, Keito Hara. This is another climber character. You can see him hanging upside down the building, watching the competition on the inside. So someone else who's going to be important in Mori's life and inspiring him to become a solo climber. Here Mori has encountered an older person who's giving him some advice. And he says, solo climbing always means death. No one is there to help you, so you die alone. Always keep your rope. People need each other to survive. And that's just some really nice writing and straight to the thematics of it. Like, look, you may be a loner, but if you take this too far, you're going to die alone. And people need each other. And that idea of always keep your rope, like always have other people around, always have a support system. And that's going to be a struggle for Mori throughout the book. And it's something that I relate to, as someone who's a pretty intense loner, but also desires human connection. Like, I burn out around people really quick, but I still desire that connection. And the push and pull between someone who wants to be alone out in the middle of the woods, out in the middle of a gigantic mountain range, but also who wants to have friends and have a love life and things like that. It could be very difficult, and that's a theme in the book that I associated. And then the real theme of the book is this: climb higher and find a new you. And it takes away that thing of being the best that I see in a lot of manga. Like, I'm going to be the best ninja, I'm going to be the best fighter, I'm going to be the best whatever. This one takes what I think is really truly the artist's route, the artist's path up the mountain, which is like the hardest path you can find. And you're taking the hardest path because you're looking for the new highest you. And to me, that's always what art has, since I was 17 or 18, what art has been about for me. Not just doing something cool, fun, trying to make money at it, but it's for me first. I'm trying to find new things about myself, figure out new things about the world, and always climb higher, never get stagnant. And so that's the theme in this book that I relate to. And then that theme is so thoroughly saturating the book that Shinichi Sakamoto literally goes on that journey in the art, and you can watch him become a master artist. And already within this first volume, you're getting some imagery like this. I know I've done some reviews of Summit of the Gods by Jiro Taniguchi, and as much as I love Taniguchi's art and his representations of nature, and I think he's this amazing background artist, I don't think that Summit of the Gods can beat The Climber. I think, and I know Shinichi Sakamoto would probably hate that, because I'm pretty sure I've read here and there that he's inspired by Summit of the Gods. But having read both of these, I think the art's more astonishing in this one, and I connected with the story more as well, even though they both deal with kind of the same topics. But some of the scenery in here that you get, and we'll see more as I talk about further volumes, but just absolute staggering, like, scenes that have so much space and depth in them and really give you a sense of being out on the mountain. I have no idea how him and his team sourced all the reference photos for this, but again, you can see this is not an adjusted photograph. This is all hand drawn. They're obviously drawing on top of a photograph or have a reference, but this is all hand done. You start to learn later in the volume 2 why Mori is such a loner, that like multiple times throughout his life he's tried to get involved in things and they've gone bad. So he says, everything I touch turns to shit. It's always been that way. And then he just kind of decides, like, it would be better for me to just be alone. So there's not just like the character set up as a loner, there's also some motivation for that, some backstory for that that gets deeper as the book goes. Then these volumes are extra cool because instead of having interviews with the artists, they delve into climbing culture. They have some interviews with some climbers in here, which I think is really cool, rounding out the information. And I'm not brave enough or strong enough to go climbing, but it's always something that fascinated me. And I do love climbing up small bits of rock and hiking and all that stuff. So it's a really tempting world to get involved in, but also, you know, reading these books and reading these interviews, you realize how tough and brave people got to be. And that's never going to be me. Same with scuba diving. I'd love to go scuba diving, but I don't know if I'll ever do it. And then in the end, we get two quotes from Shinichi Sakamoto that basically speak to what I assumed was the theme of the book. The first one is, when I read the novel this manga is based on, I admired Buntaro Kato, the main character. The way he lived his life really resonated with me. Mountains aren't an easy topic to tackle, but I wanted to be strong and determined like Buntaro as I advanced step by step towards the top. And that's where he's saying, like, I tried to be strong and I'm advancing step by step. And then once you start a climb, you can't abandon it. I think mountains and manga are similar in that way. Those were my thoughts as I faced a small 60 centimeter by 90 centimeter desk. So very much talking about the process of making this manga in the metaphorical terms of climbing mountains. And that's what I felt in it, reading it the first time through so deeply, is that I watched someone climb their own personal mountain towards masterhood, true mastery of their medium and their abilities. So that's what's so special about this book. You could start to get a sense of it in some of the background work. I don't think the character work in this volume is quite there yet. It gets way better as it goes. Less stylized and more up into Shinichi's own kind of approach to things. But even within this first volume, you're just chock full of beautiful imagery, stunning drawing, and then really, really good storytelling. But yeah, some of this exaggerated like fight manga stuff goes away as the series goes on. So I know and that's why I was like, man, I don't know how they're ever gonna sell this, because you got to get into some of the later, like probably the next volume is where it'll really start taking off in the art. And being something not like an adventure manga, I see why they started with Innocent and hashtag DRCL to get something that would be like a little more popular, you know, heads getting cut off and floofy French Victorian dresses and Dracula and that kind of stuff. And then once you got the audience committed to the artist, then you release this book, because the premise of like a guy climbing and the slower start to the art, I think, would have led to less sales on this book if this had been the first one to come out. So smart, but I've been waiting eagerly, and I'm glad it's finally here. And really, like, as good as this volume is, like, I cannot encourage you guys enough to grab this one, read it, and then keep going with the series, because it just keeps getting better and better and better till by the end it's one of the most astonishing things you've seen. But I can't be more excited. I can't be more grateful that Viz is finally putting this out. I've been talking about this for so long that as soon as it came in, I opened the book and opened my package and showed it to Tori, and she went, "Yee, finally!" Like, she knows I've been looking forward to it that much. So yeah, one of my favorite, probably top 3 comics of all time. I will see how it holds up on a reread, but so far it's doing pretty good. So I'm excited. I can't wait for the rest of them, and I hope you all get a chance to enjoy this as well. The Eisner nominated The Strange Death of Alex Raymond by Dave Sim and myself. This is a gorgeously illustrated and designed book. Dave doing most of the illustration. Amazing compositions throughout. What Dave is doing is he's recording his obsession with the death of master cartoonist Alex Raymond behind the wheel of Stan Drake's car when they got into a car crash. The best description of the book that I've heard is that it's like understanding comics with pages like this, mixed with something like From Hell, when you get into the theories about, you know, what actually happened with the car crash. And then with Sean on production, it's just one of the most gorgeously printed books you could get a hold of.